Good morning, everyone. It's June 2nd at 9:10 a.m. and we're meeting in the City Council chambers with the City of Pocatello and the local fire union. This is our fourth meeting. We had a lot of proposals on the table last week, and I was hoping to revisit some of those. Would you guys like to start, or would you like me to proceed?
Are you revisiting like counters from us, or what exactly do you have, I guess?
Go ahead and you can start and we'll follow you.
We'll start. All right. So just starting at the top, going through city proposals, we've already TA'd on one, which is the MOUs. We feel like the CBA formatting is something that we should probably work on at the end, depending on how things go with other items. So we're going to skip past 2. We have a counter to 3. And I'm sorry that some of these get pretty confusing because it's city counter proposal 2 to union, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, no.
And so just going back to the base, I've got one. Just going back to the base proposal, it is your proposal 3, which deals with vacations. Holidays. So we accepted the changing birthdays to holidays, and then what we did is we just defined the current city policy handbook as the definition for the holidays. Rather than blanket agreeing to the city policy handbook, we just agreed to the current one.
We actually have a counter to this because referencing a document that constantly changes is inefficient. So we actually just define the holidays within the policy.
Well, I think it's appropriate that we look at yours then.
Every once in a while, we think on the same wavelengths here. Apparently, this is morning. Andrew, this is a counter of a counter of a counter of a proposal.
Y'all are killing me.
You're welcome. Should we go to Roman numerals
At
as
some
well?
point, we're gonna need to. We're running out of numbers.
Fun stuff. So this is city proposal number 3 with a revision. What we did is we left the floating holidays and we defined out what the annual city observed holidays are and that they're applicable to bargaining unit members working a 40-hour week. We then defined the holidays in the policy itself so it doesn't reference to any other document.
Okay. And I guess the only concern there is like if there ends up being an additional holiday that the mayor approves, like as for instance a few years ago when they had the eclipse.
Then we would run an MOU.
Okay.
That would be the same concern as referencing the October 4th, 2019 handbook, because that wouldn't be in there either. So I think we're basically saying the same thing without referencing a changing document.
Okay.
Andrew, you're gonna have to tell me how we're numbering these.
Okay.
We've got. Oh. There it is. We might have to take just a minute just to make sure that all the holidays are on there, but otherwise I think we're okay with this one.
Okay, well, why don't we take the minute so we can start getting stuff off the table?
Okay.
Because with this one, we're tied to 9, 10, 11, and 12, 9, 10, 11, and 12 of the city, which
Okay.
reference the observed holidays.
All right. How many national holidays are there typically? Because I count 11 here, counting the floating holiday.
This is what the current was, the floating holiday. Yeah, this is what the
Okay.
current was.
All right, we'll go with that. We're willing to TA on this one.
Okay,
Do you want me to use my handout, Andrea?
I can use mine.
This is a good way to start the day. Paper off the table.
TA6. Do we want to hold on and sign them when we get done talking about the other ones, or do you want to do it now?
Do it now.
No, okay.
Or this one? This one. Okay.
Thank you. Papers.
Okay. So, moving on, cities 4 is, it talks about HRA contribution scale. And
The prorate?
that one's tied to insurance. You know, we've got there is currently an insurance proposal on the table. And so we're wanting to skip that one for now, and then we'll return when we get back to insurance.
So the city's insurance proposal did not address VIBA. Does that mean you plan on countering with something addressing VIBA?
Well, if you remember when we left the city's insurance and we went to the Northwest Firefighters Trust, we gave up $1,000 of VIBA per member
With your reduced deductible?
with
yes.
our reduced deductible. Well, with our change in insurance.
But you also had a reduced out-of-pocket cost.
Okay? Well, your proposal proposes that we increase our out-of-pocket. So anyway, we would like to skip past that one for now.
That's fine. I was just explaining my medical proposal did not address VIBA,
Yeah.
but I understand if you want to skip.
Yeah, we feel that those two are tied together, and so we'd like to move past that one. We have a counter proposal for cities 5,
Dental benefits?
dental benefits.
And I understand that you picked something up from Laura yesterday about the city's current plan.
That is, yes, ma'am, I did. And this is based around, this is, well, I'll wait till you guys have got it.
Sorry a lot.
I'll go get my portable one.
I know. Okay, so as discussed last meeting, all we did was we just summarized what the current coverage is. Our concern is just to make sure that we protect the current coverage that we've got. So this doesn't prohibit the city from shopping around on insurance. It just memorialized what we've got right now.
Okay.
Are you guys
We'll need time to consider what you bring.
okay? Okay, so cities 8, which is the discrimination one. It's 8. Sorry, 1 second. All right. We're just keeping. So where this is the way that we currently do business, we're willing to TA on number 8.
Okay. Do you have a handout of that, or do you want me to pull mine?
I do have one, but it's in the original minutes. Do you want me to
I have
just
it.
use it? Okay.
In fact, just to save you a little bit of trouble, I believe that we're willing to TA on 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13,
Slow down, Andy, I'm still looking for 8.
All right.
It's a big binder.
What's that? Not 13? Okay. Oh, no, not 13. We have a counter to 13.
Okay.
So 8,
But
9, 10.
let's just,
So
Yeah,
8,
8, 9, 10, 11,
9.
12. Yeah,
yes, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
I have all those, Andrea.
cool.
Let me read them to Andy to make sure we're talking about the right ones. So 8 is discriminatory harassment, ADA, ADEA, and EEO with abusive conduct and bullying.
Yes.
9 is settlement of dispute and discipline.
And the only change is calendar days to business days.
Yep. And then 10 is the calendar days. 11 business days and 12 business days. I made a note on those that we're sticking with union and not local 187.
Okay. Well, and that one's all contained within 2. Yeah, no, that's all good. Oh, okay. So you guys had a counter proposal to number 20 that was just striking the language of NFPA 1500?
So we TA'd?
What's that?
We TA'd that, right?
I think we agreed to, but I don't think we actually did.
I thought we did.
Hold on.
If you've got one with the signature on it, that's great, but I don't know that we actually did sign it.
Is it city proposal number 4?
City proposal
Or
number
counter
20.
proposal?
Oh, God, I don't know what the counter proposal is.
It was original 20. There was 2 counters.
It's Article 28, Health
We
and
TA'd it,
Safety.
And we-
it's CC4.
Okay, yeah, it was TA last
Okay,
week.
so we did sign it.
We did.
Okay. Number... Correct. Number 23? No, wait. Yeah, accumulation of sick leave.
2 decimal rounding.
Yes. We have not, that one's still outstanding as well, right?
It is.
So let's TA that one. Okay. Okay, all right, so we've got a counter proposal to number 15, dealing with the combat challenge, the
Okay.
physical agility test. Yeah. Here, you want me to take it over? I'll take it over, Steve. Take a second. Didn't collate somebody's copier.
Copy it right.
Firefighters.
So, but if it makes you feel better, it knows it's me, so it just doesn't print right.
Our last second session, Jared and I had a discussion, and he was concerned about not having language in there that kind of memorialized that we do the combat challenge, and concerns about the process. I felt like I really wanted to have a document that would last for 10 years and not put something in there that had to be pulled out. So I did add that if a consensus is not reached, the current test will stay in force from our last counter, and all the other language should be the same. You'll see at the top, I kind of tried to explain it a little bit better, that if the next test that we come up with isn't the best test, that we still have the flexibility to work with management to come up with another test that's probably better. And we see the need to move from the combat challenge because it injures people. And so if we find another test and another problem with that, we want the ability to then move from that test.
My only question is, everywhere else in the contract, we basically define agreements as between the union and the city. Do we want to stick with that uniform language instead of spelling out a committee and a fire department staff? Because that's an ambiguous term. Because, I mean, you're all fire department staff.
Yeah. I think we'd be agreeable to that. And to that end, if we're agreeing to it through the union, we would accept a counter that said that it was memorialized in an SOG that lined out how the test was done. That would make sense to me if the union was going to sign off on it, that there is a document that lines out how the test is done.
Do you want that spelled out in here? That it be
I think
memorialized
that,
in an SOG?
yeah, it doesn't have to be a specific SOG, but I think it referenced that an SOG was,
I agree with that.
yeah,
Let's just go ahead and leave this on the table, and when we caucus, we'll take a longer look at it.
okay.
Forgetting which piles mean what. Need labels.
Okay, so I guess at this point, we've covered a lot of the easy ones. We'd like to see what you guys have on their side.
13 is really easy. It's just a P to a G. We can still change it, but at least the bed is made, even if we're talking about remodeling the room.
I mean, as long as we understand that one's gonna be
Well,
looked at
it's
later on.
just correction
Yeah.
of that singular piece. If you
Yes.
want to talk about content, we're more than welcome to approach that later on. But that way, at least this piece is clean.
Okay, let's sign that one.
What's that?
Yeah, how about 14 as well?
What was that?
Your name's on that one, but I signed.
Oh, this one,
I should probably get a JJ out of an HB
close enough.
for like the board. You guys ready? There's a lot of note taking, so I want to make sure we're not.
Nope.
I know you wanted to skip number 2. I did clean up the local 187 back to Union, so this is a clean copy with that change, just so you have it. So when you're working from it, you're looking at something that you've already said that you don't like, so I removed that as part of the language. So Andrea, that's a revision to our number 2.
Okay, that's gonna take a little time to go over.
Oh, I know.
And I do think we do need to address some of the titles of different sections and stuff like that. There were a couple that we felt were inaccurate.
Okay, great. So revisiting city's proposal number 7 about the tobacco-free workplace, you mentioned that, ask if I read your SOG, and I have. The problem is your SOG only addresses smoking, not a smoke-free or tobacco-free workplace. The city's intent of our policy is to establish a tobacco-free workplace, including smoking, vaping. There's a long list of what those things are included in our proposal. We would just like to submit the SOG to the record that shows it only addresses basically cigarette smoke inside buildings or cigar smoke inside buildings or vehicles. So it does not approach the city's tobacco-free workplace that we were going for.
Okay. And I guess I would just reiterate that we do have a process for adjusting SOGs, and I think that it would be appropriate for it to be addressed at that point, or at that location.
Again, with the occupational disease state statute, this should be a matter that is approved by the city council. We would like it in the CBA.
Okay, we'll have to talk about it.
There's so many TAs on this sheet, it's a great feeling. The enhanced EAP program, I just wanted to follow up on city proposal number 19 and see if you had any questions that we could address at this time.
Since we're there, we actually do have a counter for that one. And, yeah, you're off.
Your turn for the steps, huh?
Adam's going to talk about this one.
This counter essentially just fixes a few spelling errors, and it clarifies that we follow Article 17 of our sick leave policy, and that the regular time if attended on duty, just so it was separated from off-duty and on-duty.
The city's fine with those changes.
Okay.
Andrea will TA on that. take a quick break because you lost a member. He snuck out on you.
He'll be back.
Okay. City proposal number 21 and 22, which was the start date to the next full pay period starting after the date of promotion for, sorry, the promotional vacancy and for the start date of WOOC new and changes. We were hoping to follow up on that one today. These were hard. These were ones we handed out and there was a little dialogue, but not a lot of discussion at this point.
Yeah. We actually have counter proposals to both of those, and we'll go ahead and do both of them at the same time.
Yep.
Okay. No, I don't need one. You should have. I've got one here. So this counter is just, I mean, you guys' proposal was that, that the pay take over at the start of the next pay period. We're just countering that it starts at the beginning of the current pay period. Your logic for the next pay period is at most it costs 13 days. Our logic is the same. At most it costs 13 days.
So my only question is, you say the entire pay period, so you're saying the beginning of the pay period in which it would occur even if it's double held by people?
Yes.
And what's with the change to adding base rate, holiday rate, premium an hour, all of that in there now?
That was just to make sure that everything's captured, all the ad pays that would be affected, just for completeness.
So one has all of it spelled out, or at least most of it, and one just says all applicable ad pays. Is there a reason that there's a difference in the language used?
You're talking between the two counters?
Yeah.
The all applicable ad pays, I believe, was a holdover from your original proposal, but on the working out of class, it's just a single ad pay, whereas a promotion or a demotion is going to affect base rates, holiday rates.
Okay, so that was intentionally different.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I'm going through the list and you guys are giving all the proposals.
I will add too on the one about the promotions, just to be consistent with, I think, the intent of your original proposal. It would be not just promotions that would be affected by that, but also appointments from, probationary to second class or second to first class, or an appointment to a medic position would all be affected by this mid-pay period change. So we want to, I guess, ease the burden on finance for all changes like that.
But any reductions would be the opposite.
Yes, but still full pay periods.
Right, but it would be, they would finish out the pay period at the higher rank.
Yes.
City proposal number 24 was the change to the arbitration process. Did you have any questions on that one?
That one's gonna take a lot more discussion, so I would say that our preference would be to save it for a little while, come back to it.
City Proposal 25 was clarification of the union business, Article 5 of the CBA.
You have a counter proposal to Article, or to city proposal number 25. So this is accepting the changes that you put in there. The only thing that we've added is IFF held positions and conventions. This reflects the way that we currently do business, and it would also protect our right to be able to go to the IFF convention or any of the caucuses that are there that are a duty of officers within the international.
We'll need to discuss this one. Your union proposal number 3, which was the battalion chief hiring process. We are interested in that change, however, we are still struggling a little bit with odd versus even years, running them on or off cycle with your other promotions. We wondered if you had any feedback on that.
To be honest, I don't think that portion of that matters to us. I mean, I think that the intent is that the promotional process be cleaned up. If you guys have a proposal to move it to a specific year, I think we would entertain that.
I'll bring a written one after caucus, but I'll briefly summarize. We'd like to run a list in 22 just so that we have a list created, and then run it again in 23 so it's in opposite years of your driver, operator, and your captains. But we would have a list established with the start of this CBA. Does that make sense? So the first year it'd run on cycle with the others. After, it would only be a 1-year list. After that, it would run on even years, so we were odd years. It would run on the off cycle of your other promotions. But there would have to be that caveat for the first year, we would only generate a 1-year list. Because I wouldn't want to go to 3 to start out the process. That seems a bit clunky. I'll bring a written on that as a counter. I'd like to revisit your union proposal number 8, the MERP increase. I told you we would cost that out just so that we're transparent. There's a really big calculation, so doubling it. The only thing the city has this time on this issue is just a handout of the calculation itself. So it just doubles the costs, because your head count remains at 87 bargaining unit members. So we don't have a proposal or a counter proposal or a TA on this item. It's just a sharing of information at this time. mind, we'd like to take a caucus to address some of the handouts we had today, and so that we could bring a counter proposal to the BC hiring list.
How long do you want for? You know what, before we do that, is it okay if we do two more really quick? I think
Sure.
one should be a TA and then the other one should just be briefly. One that I think I missed when we were going through doing a bunch of TAs was City 18, which is just striking the language about economic issues.
I believe we TA'd on that last meeting.
Did we TA that one? Because that one I didn't have recorded as having done, so I just wanted to make sure. It's City 18.
Did not TA that one, Andrea?
It would have been Article 36, number 11.
Sounds right.
And it was, yeah, Article 36, number 11.
The original, oh, it was original number 5, original number 5 is that what you said?
No, it was city proposal number 18.
Oh, well, I lied then.
We didn't TA that one.
Well, I don't, if we're talking about the same one, yes, we did.
The clarification of economic issues, removing that we must agree.
We just striking
Just
the
took the whole
entire
section
section
out.
Yeah,
11.
just struck that section.
TA.
Okay, sorry, I was just trying to clarify because I knew that I said
It's a
we
lot of
agreed,
pieces.
but I don't know that I had actually TA'd.
We did.
And then we've got one more, it is a counter to city proposal number 26 for education reimbursement.
Okay.
You want to talk about it? Okay.
Here.
Oh,
There, three pages.
Sorry, did you say 26?
Yeah. Yep. Largely accepted. Give me just 1 second here, sorry.
It's a lot of stuff to keep track of.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I capture everything here. We did address there was conflicting language in what you submitted to us. In here it said an official transcript twice and it said unofficial transcript once. The problem is that they cost money and sometimes they take up to 3 weeks to a month to get. And so we were concerned about meeting timelines and not getting reimbursement because of that. ISU doesn't offer an unofficial transcript, they only offer official transcripts that cost money. And in the past, we've been able to submit proof of grade. So that was the change in there, we changed it from official transcript to proof showing their grade.
So that's section D, page 2.
That is section D, number 4, and section G. And section K is in 3 spots. Our copy, let's see that. It looks like the copy that I gave you doesn't have what was omitted. I apologize for that. I can get you a clean copy when we come in after caucus. At the end of L, there was a complete deletion of the bottom of L. And on B, where it says...
Okay, going back to L real quick.
Okay,
You're going faster than I can find it.
all right.
So you eliminated, or you were striking, or you left out
We struck,
paragraph 2 of section L?
yes. And the first sentence in L essentially reflects the change that we made in B.
So are you defining disrupt by the language in B? I mean, by the language in L? I mean, is that what you're basically going for there?
Essentially, yes.
Okay. So would you interpret that to mean that it could be during regular working hours as long as it doesn't disrupt the duties? I'm just trying to understand your intent there.
Yeah, the intent is that we work such a unique schedule. And for example, if I took a night class online from 7 to 8 p.m., it has no impact. I'm still at the station. I respond just as fast as I would if I was reading a book. So it's just the uniqueness of our job that allows that. Did I explain that?
Yeah, I get the online aspect of it. I'm just curious how that would work if somebody were to claim that they were able to go to a classroom during that same time and not have a disruption.
If there's language that you would want to counter with to fix that, you would.
I do have a question on page 2G, where you say proof of passing grade listed in section K. We're kind of defining proof differently between the three areas. Wouldn't it be easier just to kind of define it in D and then just say proof after that? We'll add this as a caucus list item and we'll come back with tweaks. Is that okay?
Yeah, that sounds fine. Yeah, I just felt like there was 3 different spots it said it.
And I agree, clarifying it out, but we usually do it at the first item.
Okay.
So we will caucus and bring it counter.
If I could just jump in real quick on that, that disruption question you had. You know, I would think that if a person went to a class in person, that would definitely constitute disruption, so.
Okay, and I'm just trying to get your perspective on that. So maybe some language like without leaving the facility or something along those lines. I'm just kind of spitballing, but we'll maybe consider some language, but I think that makes sense.
So if we're gonna go to caucus, I just wanted to check really quick, how long do you guys think you're gonna need caucus? Wow.
More than 10 minutes.
Okay, well, you'll know where we'll be.
Yeah. Do you guys want a pitcher of water or anything today?
There's pitch water. in there.
Okay. Sorry. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for allowing us the time to caucus. We would like to go ahead and TA your BC list proposal as is.
As is? So, no staggering?
Nope. We'll figure it
Okay.
out. Andrea, I have a clean one.
We'll just TA the one they gave us, if I can find it. For heaven's sakes. Wait. I might have to steal yours because I can't.
It's okay, I got one handy.
Dear Lord.
We would like to counter on the tuition. The only substantive change we made was that course attendance must not, use your language, disrupt normal duties. And we added that says employee must remain at assigned station to address the physical location of where the class will have to be. We removed that second paragraph on the last section that you had removed, so that has been struck, and we went with the proof rather than the official transcript or unofficial transcript. Because you're right, not every school is easy to get transcripts out of. We do have counters to the WOOC and the promotional eligibility. We adopted your language of the first day of the pay period in which the promotion or the change in WOOC occurs. We went with a little more precise to the first day of the pay period rather than the beginning of the pay period, just so it matches some other language in city documents. We, however, did not address demotions. We just left that as, if you demote, it's either a voluntary choice or a disciplinary matter, so a hand calculation on that issue would continue to be appropriate. Any questions on any of those so far?
You didn't have both of them out, I guess.
Oh, yeah, Adam only passed one.
Sorry, I should have told you I gave you two. The hole punching should have helped you be able to pass it. You see my desk, a piece of paper on it, it's equal.
Yeah, I do.
So on the counter to the original 21, the promotion,
Okay.
are we then saying that for movement from like a probationary firefighter to a second class or second class to first class would still be a hand calculation?
That would remain a hand calculation as a rank advancement rather than a promotion.
Okay.
Because there's no threshold criteria, it's just time and rank, correct?
And completion of a few things.
Ready?
Sure.
I gave up trying to redline the fit for duty, so I just put a nice little note that says this is a complete rewrite. So it's not gonna be yellow and red, so it might be easier reading.
Great. Obviously, this is one you guys will need time as a group to digest because it is a pretty big rewrite. We incorporated some of our language and some of yours to kind of come to a mash proposal. And our last counter proposal for the moment
is a counter to union business. I did take it out of paragraph form because it was getting hard to read. So the list of union business activities listed here are in bullet point. Changes are in red and additions are in yellow. Are there any of the other smaller issue items we'd like to talk about before we jump into benefits and pay?
Well, one that isn't benefit or pay, do you guys have any response to union number 3, the proposed schedule change?
I have many questions. I'm not sure if I'm articulate enough in the material that you handed over to ask those in an intelligent manner at this meeting. It's lingo that you're used to and you've been researching for years. It's a cold read for me other than something I read a few years ago, so it is taking us a little bit of time to wrap our head around it.
Is there any questions that we could answer here?
All of the studies seem to end within a year or two of them, people rolling to the 4896. Are there any long-term studies or feedback that you've received from some of your counterparts that address the effects of the schedule?
So one of those studies that was handed over was initially done just pre and post implementation of 4896, but then went back for the years, I want to say, like 5 or 6 years following implementation and tracked everything.
So
there as well.
that's the one that I should reference for the longer term.
I think as far as a direct study of that goes, yes. But in general, speaking to counterparts around the state, everybody has had positive experiences with the schedule in the short term after making the switch, and they've continued to since they made the switch.
I don't think it's something we have a lot of dialogue on right now. We've been focused on some of the other areas because we know this is a big learning curve for us and we're trying to get through that learning curve. We definitely would like to address it at either the next meeting or within the next meeting or so. But right now, I don't have a lot of feedback to give you at this time. I don't have a counter or anything. It's just kind of sitting on the table.
Okay. What about union number 6, the opener for paramedic?
So 4, 6, and 10 seem pretty tied together. It's hard to talk about a deployment model for paramedics if we're talking about a different FLSA cycle and deployment model for the department. So I'm struggling a little to separate those 3 issues.
have any specific questions. I mean, I think that, I guess from our perspective, the schedule change is just a schedule change. And the opener would be dealing with and trying to become more efficient within that schedule change when we get there. I mean, it's just trying to be flexible so that we can make changes if needed.
And I understand, and the feedback I've got from fire management is that the medical doctor you operate under for the ambulance service does have some concerns about the 4896. So that is kind of why those issues seem to be tied for me.
Okay. We've had membership that has spoken with him, and that's slightly conflicting from what feedback we've received.
Every conversation, how you ask a question changes the outcome, right? So same question asked two slightly different ways is coming up with two answers. It doesn't mean either party's lying or wrong. It just means it's hard to get to the bottom of what the actual answer is.
Okay. Then I guess before we get into the money thing, we do have one more proposal. This is, God. It's a counter to your counter number 2, but it deals with the 4 days off. So it actually is
The vacation
the
bidding,
vacation bidding.
that's our
that?
counter to your offer, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And it is, trying to see where it's at on here.
It'd be union proposal 5 originally.
Okay. So, and I apologize because what we did is we took current contract language and so we don't have the strike through from your proposal. However, we didn't see the need to have the historical reference to Kelly Days contained within the contract. So we struck all of that language. And we were willing to accept the move from Kelly Days into vacation. One thing that we do want to clarify there, though, is that the way that we currently bid Kelly Days, first off, our younger members have first shot at those. So this is a little bit of a give for us to make that change, because it changes their ability to get it, because we bid vacation based on seniority, but Kelly based on reverse seniority. Additionally, the way that we've received Kelly Days in the past is that we get them in a lump sum at the beginning of the new contract, at the beginning of the new fiscal year. And so by getting them at an accrual rate through the year, then that is also a little bit of a concession. We did, however, strike the addition that you had on management rights at the end.
I'm sorry, you struck what?
You had
Oh, part five.
you had the additional portion about management rights at the end to expand the direction of the workforce.
So my only concern about striking the Kelly Day accrual language of what we historically did is so that in 3 years, we don't sit back here and talk about adding Kelly Days back into the contract.
We archive old copies of the contract, don't you?
Oh, yeah, but that doesn't mean those issues don't come back to the table because the membership feels like it's a benefit they're lacking.
I guess I don't know the right way to articulate that, but I just think it's extra language that doesn't need to be in the contract. And I don't feel like that's a concern.
I'll need to read through it just because it's original language to change language to original, so I'll need time to review that one with management.
I guess if you want to move into more of the benefit and financial aspect of things, we may as well get started. I think the ball's in your court for most of that.
Well, actually, the benefit one on the table is the counter we made to the union,
Dealing with insurance,
medical benefits.
medical benefits. If you'd like, we would like to use some audio video to go over a little of that
Okay.
in our response. So if you give me just a second to go grab my computer from the other room and get that set up.
Do you need the projector then?
Yeah.
Thank you, Ken.
Where do you want?
Your spot fit.
Yeah, Marine Corps. It's been sitting on the charger. It should be good for a minute.
Do you want mine, Andy? Do
What's that?
you want my charger?
I mean, I don't anticipate this is gonna take a real long time.
Not hours is what you're telling me? You're gonna be okay?
That's not my intent.
Okay. Well, we will need to take a lunch break.
Well, and I guess, are we on the record right now? Okay. I wasn't sure whether or not you were. I guess before we get too far into this, I mean, this is not the only benefit item on the table.
I know. I'm turning the lights off over there so we can see the projector.
So the majority of the people in this room were here when this happened. I mean, you were negotiating on the other side from us. I can't remember whether or not you worked for the city when we moved to the Northwest Trust.
Not this city.
I know you're definitely the outlier, Jim. You're not familiar with Wada's history.
Believe me, yes.
What's that?
I said in many ways, believe me, yes.
Okay, so we've got 4 years of experience with the Northwest Trust. In 2017, we reached agreement to move over to the Northwest Trust for insurance for FY 2018. So, and obviously, I mean, this is just a repeat there that we reached agreement during negotiations. And part of that agreement was that we agreed to a reduction in VIBA benefits from $2,000, which we had at that point in time, to $1,000, which gave the city a savings of approximately $87,000 per year. And we also took on administration duties for the Northwest Trust as well as VIBA, those things that had historically been housed in finance and in HR. And we can't necessarily quantify those savings because we don't know how much impact they had on those departments. For 2018, the difference between the cost of the Northwest Trust and the actual cost to the city was $167,000. based on contract language and based on the percentage breakdowns that are in our current CBA. For FY19, that number, the city's insurance went up more than the trust did, and the number was about $220,000, which means that if you add the other one in, it's about $387,000 in savings the city had realized at that point. For 2020, it was about $240,000, which brought the total up to $627,000. This year, the city had a major reduction within their insurance costs. They got rid of the retiree pool within the city benefit plan, and they also, because of COVID, experienced a lesser degree of utilization, and so they got a 14.2% reduction, which resulted in the same comparison, meaning that our plan was about $35,000 more expensive if you deduct the $87,000 in VIVA that we gave up, which leaves the grand total at $592,000. It's projected that with the city's increase that they've got on the table for next year of 7% and the current anticipated increase with the trust, that if we were to change the numbers, because currently you guys have a proposal on the table that we pay, that we have the same breakdown as other city employees, so that changes the amount that the trust would cost the city, if you get what I mean, because the current contract language says a single person pays, or the city would pay 94% for them. For a two-party, it says that it would pay 92%, and for a family, it's 90%. And that's what the level was in 2017 when we signed the contract, and the contract has not been open to change that number in that time. But if we did go to the 95, 90, and 15 that the city currently has, then obviously it means that there's a little bit of a greater impact to the city there. So moving on, we project that within 1 to 2 years, the Northwest Trust will again be cheaper than the city's insurance. And that's where we sit, including that $60,000. So with that said, we would like to return to our original proposal. We don't have interest in changing insurance because we feel that long-term, that over time, the union insurance has saved the city money, and that long-term, we will again be cheaper than the city, and we don't want to make a major change based on a one-year large reduction that we feel like is an anomaly.
So how did you factor into the fact that you removed almost 100 people from the city pool?
If you remember from the point in time that we left the trust, your current provider told you that that would have no impact on the city's rates.
I'm sorry, the city's who?
When we left the trust, it was at your presentation with the city council, your administrator, it might have been AJ, but it might have also been somebody from Aetna, because that was our provider at the time, had stated that the firefighters leaving the pool had no impact on the trust, or on your insurance costs at that point in time.
And when, do you have a meeting date for historical reference?
Well, it would have been either the budget development meetings in FY17 or FY18. Obviously, it was there. You guys took a big increase in 18, so it would have been your budget development in FY17.
I'm not sure of the exact presentation you're referencing. I would need to look that up to be able to reference what you're saying.
And you know, I mean, and we didn't want to get too far into the weeds on this, but prior to negotiating this change, we did have a dispute over this and reached impasse and went to fact-finding and received and won in fact-finding about the decision to be able to leave the city's insurance.
We're not arguing
Okay.
that you have that right, Andy.
Okay. But, okay.
Well, I think the effect of the pool was brought up during that fact finding, so you can
Well, that's
those
different.
minutes too.
And understandable, that's just different than the budget meeting he referenced, so that I could go back and view that information.
Right, that's
It's
what
not saying
that's
that
what
it's
we're letting
wrong.
you know.
I just need to know where to look it up.
Yeah, those fact-finding minutes would be another place to find that info.
I'll definitely look there too, thank you.
So that's where we sit on health insurance. I mean, like I said, we would like to return to our original proposal. That we just do a simple language cleanup and strike the extra language within that.
The other benefit that would be on the table, I believe, would be the VIBA. Your union proposal number 7 about premium pay retro for the COVID-19 public health emergency. I'm sorry, not retro, for the COVID-19 public health emergency.
Yes.
I was a little confused at the last meeting. I asked if it would be paid in a lump sum or by paycheck. I just wanted clarification on how the union was looking for that payment.
You know, at the time, that wasn't a question that we had anticipated answering. And so after some consideration, I think probably the best way to go is to do it as a lump sum. And the reason that I say that is that if we do it as a lump sum, then the intent of it is to reward the people who were on the front lines and were working during the COVID-19 pandemic. And some of those people will end up moving on into retirement and stuff like that. So if we do it on a per paycheck, then they miss out on that for their hard work during the pandemic.
Have you researched it as it relates to the applicability under the new act that was passed in January?
Yes. Well, did you want to talk on it, or?
Sure, I think, yeah, because I know your question is going to be on the marginalized workers.
Right.
Is the way we read it, the way we researched it, is that portion was intended if the city wanted to create a grant system or a grant program for the marginalized workers in the community. Is the way we referenced that, and we find, because the ARP allows local government to give grants to private sector employees to provide premium pay to their essential workers. However, there's no clear state statute for a local authority to do it. That local government could establish a hazard program for low or moderate income workers as per above. But as far as the city has the ability to provide the pay for their essential workers. So we believe that moderate to low income is for the grants that could be provided for the community, not the employed city's essential workers. Because there are two different bullet points in instructions.
So you're not trying to draw a direct reference to the $2 premium pay per hour for firefighters to ARPA directly?
To what, I'm sorry?
How are you seeing that the $2 per hour premium pay relates to the ARPA pay directly for fire employees? Based on what you just said, it sounds like you
To
believe
respond
it
to
does
work,
not.
okay, yeah, so it also says to respond to, let's see, one respect, to respond to workers performing essential work during the COVID-19 public health emergency, premium pay to eligible workers of the qualifying local government that are performing such essential work. And so there's two different sections. It's we feel, we believe, and it says it's up to, it could be as much as up to $25,000 per year, according to the ARP.
What's the $45,000 that you?
Up to $25,000. That is the max that could be provided to essential workers in this premium / hazard pay is how it's spelled out.
Okay.
So we feel there's two different sections. There's the section that applies to the city's essential workers, which is up to the governing authority to determine who is essential. It could be sanitation, streets, water, sewer, I mean, whatever the city deemed. And then there is the grant portion for the marginalized workers that the city could provide to the community.
So that's your interpretation?
Yes.
Okay.
And just so I can look into that, Curtis, what is the document that you're referring to there?
Well, there's been, this
I
is
know there's a
actually-
lot of stuff out there
Yeah.
about it, so.
I'd have to go back to find the exact, where I actually drew it from, but it's actually from, I'd have to get with that to find exactly where it says, but I can give you a copy of it. I printed off just the page that concerned, because it is what, 200?
Yeah.
So I printed off just the page, and I could actually print this off and turn it over. Or copy it.
As long as it has the reference, so I can see where
Yeah.
the source is,
Sure.
that would be really helpful.
GS 153A92.
Say it one more time, sorry.
So yeah, GS 168-162, GS 153A-92 for county. So GSA 168, 162 is for municipalities.
Isn't that the regulations?
That's the
total
regulations. And then there's just the instructions.
Okay.
Like I said, there's many references out there. And there have been some of this money has already been allocated to some departments that have been doing this, some cities as well, so.
I think now would be a good time to break for lunch, and then we can come back and consider our counters to your counters, and then maybe talk about a few more of these stickier items. Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah.
I have to feed support staff who are keeping us moving here. All right, about 1:30 be okay? That's about an hour.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see you back at 1:30. Thank you. Good afternoon, welcome back. Before lunch, we had passed over a couple of counter offers. We wondered if you had time to look at or review any of those.
Yes, we looked at, all right, so the one for City 21,
The promotion date
yeah, the promotion date in City 22,
and the working at a class date.
yep, and also the one about education, so it was,
21, 22, and 26.
yep,
Originally.
21, 22, and 26.
I'm not sure how many
Motion one.
counters were into
I-
this at this point.
All I care is what they were originally.
Me too.
So, yeah, we're willing to TA those three.
There's one minor typo on the counter to 21. There's 2,000 in a row on either side of the stricken day.
Oh.
You're okay, I suppose, if we strike one of those?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You need to publicly point out my typo of
I
the.
just want it to be clear. Sorry,
The.
I didn't catch it before, it's my fault too.
Do you need me to pull?
Yeah.
Here, you can use this one, it's clean. In fact, it's got a the stricken.
It's got a Bubba.
It's already got the.
Okay, that one.
I have the education. And what's that, worker?
Here's Wook too. Getting your steps
Yeah.
back and forth.
I'm not in the step challenge yet. Okay, so what do I have?
How do we feel about the combat challenge language?
Give me 1 second.
Sorry, he's got to sign, my bad.
So in looking at you guys' current counter proposal, this is a major break from where we were at. we started out and it really felt like we were pretty close.
Okay.
And this changes the intent entirely. It doesn't have anything to do with what we originally started with and tries to make it punitive. In fact, we would, at this point, our hangup was leaving the word combat challenge in there because it was because it didn't need to be there. But really, we were that close. And I guess we would just counter that we would be willing to go back to that proposal and we'll worry about striking that language later.
Can you tell me what that proposal is?
That was your
specifically,
counter
so I know
proposal
which one it
that
is.
included, I can't even remember what counter.
Sorry, it's hard to keep track
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah, it was your first counter, because you brought it, we countered, then you recountered.
So offer, counter, counter.
Yes.
Okay.
If we can find it, we can go with it. Okay. Well, we can look that one up and revisit it later.
And then how about the union business language?
We have some different ideas on that, but we're not willing to bring anything forward right now.
And then earlier this morning, which seems like eons ago, I failed to follow up on 2 of the city proposals, and I just wanted to touch base on those real quick. We didn't discuss 24, which was the arbitration process. Wondered if you had any feedback on that proposal.
So,
I know you said it was big.
yeah, well, I mean, it is big, because grievance arbitration, the way that we do it, is the industry standard. That's the way that the majority of fire service does it. There's not a single department within the state that uses a fact-finding panel style arbitration. And arbitrators that are professional arbitrators, like through the AAA or through, is it FMCS? Both of those are, they have specific training in labor disputes. And so we don't feel like it's a good idea to go to a 3-person panel that's well outside of the industry norm. And, I mean, just to pose a question back to you guys, we recently had an arbitration. If the union had lost that arbitration and then brought forward a proposal to change that process, how would you have viewed it?
Viewed what? I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the question.
Well, so I'm not going to go too far into this, but from our side, this appears like as if it could be, and I'm not saying it is, but it could be viewed as retaliatory. You guys just lost an arbitration, and now you want to change the process.
Okay, well, that's not what it is. I can tell you that from the intent standpoint of this side of the room, it was more based on the arbitration that was scheduled for last month that didn't happen, that was postponed months and months and months and months. We thought it would be beneficial and a cost-saving measure for both sides to move to a process that is more, that expedites the process much more quickly and doesn't cost as much. And that's really the motivation for us bringing that proposal.
I'm not positive it expedites the process more quickly because you've got to work out schedules amongst 3 individuals on the panel versus 1 individual with an arbitration.
And that's very possible. We just know for a fact that some of the AAA arbitrations that we had, the scheduling was really a long process. And there was some miscommunication with AAA that I think both sides agree was on AAA. We all thought we had an arbitration scheduled at a specific date, and they responded back that they didn't have any record of that, and so we had to reschedule again. We really just thought this would expedite the arbitration process going forward.
we like the process that we have. I mean, if you guys want to pursue moving towards like FMCS to see if they provide a better service, then that still provides a professional arbitrator, which is what we would like to do. I mean, if you want to find out if their process is any better, or if the paperwork aspect of that and scheduling is improved, then we would entertain doing that.
Okay.
But we want to keep the process whole.
Yeah, and that's fine. Honestly, this was something I wanted to bring forward. I wanted to just have the conversation with you. I didn't know if you would jump on the chance to consider a different method of doing it that might speed things up. I think looking into FMCS is a great idea, and we can definitely do that to see what their availability is, what their typical timeline is for an arbitration. I don't think the delays that we've experienced with other grievances and arbitrations has been good for either of us, so I thought that this would be maybe something that we could give a try. But yeah, we'll look into that and see if that's an option. I have no problem with that.
Okay. Well, and certainly the arbitration that we recently had scheduled, but obviously the last year has been difficult for a lot of reasons in scheduling. So
Sure.
that was definitely outside the norm.
There was a lot of delays in that one even before COVID became an issue, in my opinion, though. So, but yeah, that's all I wanted to do is have the conversation about that. And I think looking into the other alternative is a great idea.
Okay.
And 27.
Okay, so I'd like to share a little something with you guys.
With Jared statutes, all you.
Yeah, so first off, I want to bring up the fact that this is the Idaho statute regarding open negotiations and the open meeting law. On the first paragraph down there on B, it says receiving information about a specific employee when the information has direct bearing on the issues being negotiated, and a reasonable person would conclude that the release of the information would violate the employee's right to privacy. That allows, or that means that when we discuss a specific employee's working conditions, then we should do it in an executive session. And I don't think it's appropriate for us to be doing this in open meeting. If we want to pause the recording and make sure that there's no one else in the room, then I think we can have that discussion. But I do think that it's inappropriate for us to be doing this in open meeting.
I see where you're coming from. I guess my only concern about that is executive sessions under the open meetings law are the exception to the rule, and there's very specific guidelines for which you can go into executive session, and you're arguing, or you're stating that this is one of those. We're not talking about a specific employee, we're talking about a position, and there is a difference. I understand, I'm not naive enough to realize that position is held by a specific employee, but we're not talking about discipline related to an employee, we're not talking about matters specific to that person. We are talking about a position. So I think that as a position in the union, that's what negotiations are for. And Idaho is a very unique state in that those union negotiations happen in open session.
And I disagree strongly with that. I think that, because the employee holds that position, really, there's no one else in the room but us, so all we would have to do is turn off the recording. I feel that it was extremely callous to have brought that forward the way that it was in the meeting where this proposal was brought forward without that, and I understandably so, that employee can't have previous knowledge of what proposals you're bringing, but I think that should have been done in executive session to allow for the well-being of that employee.
Well, and I get that. We discussed this at length prior to bringing that proposal and discussed options for doing it other than the way that under the law we felt we had to do it. We're not talking about a layoff based on lack of performance or something along those lines. We're talking about part of a negotiated contract and the city structure and as it relates to that negotiated contract. So it really was the best way. Now, if you want to talk specifics about the employee as it relates to what we proposed, then I think this provision absolutely applies. And maybe that's where you're going. I don't know that for sure. And I'm happy to go into executive session under this provision to have that conversation. But if we get into just general comments and commentary about the position and not the employee, that has to happen in open negotiations. So we can go into that session and I'd be happy to hear what you have to say. But from there, we would have to decide how much we can say in closed session versus open session.
Well, and I don't have anything personal that, as far as like anything that has to do with that employee in particular, but I still feel like this is someone's job, this is someone's
Sure.
livelihood.
Yeah.
And I do think that this is not the appropriate way to go over this.
Well, I'm not opposed to going into closed session, shutting off the recording. We can even excuse Andrea because she's taking minutes of the proceedings and not necessarily minutes of a closed session. But I don't know how much we're going to be able to discuss in that closed session versus open session. And but we can certainly go there.
Give me 1 second.
Sure.
What if rather than discuss that proposal at present time, we do it at the beginning of the next session, and we'll have kind of had a little bit of time to decide exactly how we want to go about that, but it would be at the beginning of the next session.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
I think that's everything that's open has been at least touched upon today. We did have a counter to your counter on floating holidays / Kelly days. If now's a good time, I'll go ahead and pass that over.
Was our wage proposal?
I mean, we have a wage proposal on the floor, and we also have ambulance driver ad pay. And other than getting information on the MERP, we have not received any.
This is a counter on the MERP as well.
Okay,
Do you want me to hand this out now?
sure.
So this is a multi-part proposal that combines several of the issues into a collective approach to try to end things in these areas. It addresses the 4th vacation slot. It addresses the elimination of Kelly days into vacation. It addresses an increase to MERP. It does still include the management right clause. It does have vacation accrual rounding to 2 decimal points, and it adjusts calendar year and vacation cap payout limits. We tried to keep it pretty red line so it'd be easier to track what the changes were. Obviously, a lot of this is new information, so it would need to be considered.
I wonder why you included the MERP within this counter proposal. Those were 2 separate proposals, and they're not even the same article.
They are separate articles, but we do consider them both employee benefits.
Okay, well, what's the reasoning for reducing the vacation accumulation?
One of the big push we're hearing for the 4896 is a better work-life balance, which means you should be using vacation rather than just accruing. By pushing employees to take vacation by having lower caps, it means that they're using that time rather than banking it.
But this is a long-standing benefit that we've had, and I don't see a benefit to reducing that. I would say that if we're going to go there, what we should do is we should probably look at the schedule and then explore this after we have a little bit of time on it. Other than that, I think we're gonna have to talk about this and really have a little bit.
That's all that we have prepared for today.
So you don't have anything to even address wages or talk about that?
Andy, that's all we have for today.
Okay. Well, we don't have anything else for today either.
Okay,
We are at our 30-day window.
we are.
How do we want to proceed?
We would like to schedule 2 meetings the week of the 16th, Tuesday morning, a Tuesday afternoon and a Thursday morning, and continue to work towards reaching an agreement.
And what about filing for fact-finding?
I believe we need to, but we can continue to work towards a solution.
So the week of the 14th then?
Yeah,
Because-
so it'd be the Tuesday, the 15th in the afternoon and Thursday, the 17th in the morning. We figured 3-hour chunks is a little bit more tolerable with some of these huge issues now. That week available to you guys?
What's that? Yeah, I think we can do that. The other item that I guess we'd like to broach is at any point should we look at we've had success in mediation, at least getting some of the more hard fought things figured out. Do we have any interest in pursuing that?
I definitely would be interested in mediation. I would like to get another session behind us before we file for that or reach out. Just because there are a couple things we haven't been able to have a good dialogue on. At the meeting on the 15th, we do plan on bringing extensive questions on the 4896 to give us a better understanding. We'll have them formulated articulately by then so that we can get some feedback to better understand that overall schedule.
Okay. So then since we need fact finding, like we were just talking about, can be a drawn out process.
Yes, it can.
So what we'll do is we will determine who will be our fact finder and provide that information to you if you will do the same. And then we'll put those two together. The last time that we went to fact finding, it took about 6 months to schedule, so we should have ample time to continue working.
Yeah, and that's the hope as well, and I'm glad the contract allows us to continue to work on the negotiation, because there's no reason not to do that. There is, and I would like to have this discussion with you just briefly, there is some ambiguity in the contract as it relates to Idaho code for fact-finding. The contract seems to indicate that a stalemate or an impasse has to be reached before fact-finding, but code just says the 30 days is what triggers. Do you guys have any concerns or anything to add to that?
Well, obviously we've got to follow statute. Statute trumps anything.
Absolutely.
And so, we're outside of the 30-day window, so I do think that we should work on that.
Okay.
Obviously, I don't feel like we've reached impasse because we've got items that we have not even touched upon
Right.
within this negotiation. So I think it's good just to get the ball rolling so that if we do reach that point, then we've already got things taken care of and have a plan. But we've got 2 meetings coming up, and hopefully we can get some of this resolved.
And that's exactly how I look at it. I just wanted to make sure that we're both on the same page there. So we'll move forward in that fashion. And based on our earlier conversation, the union negotiation executive session statute, in fact, the one that you provided, is very vague as it relates to how to do that. I'm a belt and suspenders kind of guy. I like to make sure we're doing things right and then a little bit more. And so what I will do is as we prepare the notice for the next meeting, since we want to have that at the beginning of the meeting, that notice will include the executive session and the subsections for that. And then when we go into executive session, there should be no problem as far as the open meeting law is concerned. Any problems with that?
No.
Okay.
So Tuesday, the 15th, we can have council chambers from 1 to 4. And Thursday, the 17th, we can have council chambers from 9 to noon.
Okay. We'd like at least an hour prior to that for
I'll
the
book
caucus room.
Paradise for you. You'll be in Paradise book days.
Okay. All right.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you.